Good evening, Council, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, staff. Welcome. It's October the 4th. We have two things going on this evening. One, we begin with a public hearing, and then we'll, after the public hearing regarding two matters, two public hearings actually, are closed, then we'll be proceeding with our council meeting. So firstly, I'll call the public hearing to order. And looking around the table, we're missing Councillor Meisner, who will be here later, I believe. We're missing Councillor Windsor, who is away of necessity on a family matter. Are we missing anyone else? Councillor Harding. Okay, I keep looking over there for him, but that's where he used to be. And Councillor Harding is with an excuse. But I explain that because in public hearings, those councillors who are not present at the public hearing will be unable to vote on any matter associated with these applications at any future time. So that just absence from the public hearing because they haven't heard public input disqualifies them from voting on the matters. So calling this to order, we'll be first dealing with the application to enter into a development agreement at 9347 Commercial Street, New Minas, and Ms. Mosier will be presenting. And I'll attend to your light here, Ms. Mosier, as soon as I can get my computer to react. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are here tonight for a public hearing for a development agreement. By way of background, Mr. Robert Coldwell owns the property at 9347 Commercial Street in New Minas. The property is zoned general commercial, or C1. There is a main building on the property that contains a business office on the ground level and a residential unit on the second story. There's also a detached garage on the property as well as a small shed. But the subject of this application is with regard to the garage. So as part of a building inspection related to the garage, it was discovered that construction had commenced on an illegal residential unit. The general commercial zone only permits residential units above, below, or behind a commercial unit. So the residential unit within the main building above the business office is a permitted unit. However, we're not able to permit units within an accessory building as of right. So the applicant has applied to enter into a development agreement for two purposes. One is to legalize the existing unit, and the second, well, it's not an existing unit, it's under construction, but also to add a second unit to that same building. It should also be noted that that building does not meet the setback requirements for a main use, which is another reason for the development agreement. This enables council to contemplate reduced setbacks. Our subject property is in New Minas. It is in the northeast quadrant of the intersection of Bonavista Avenue, which turns into Silver Fox, and Commercial Street. It is quite a small property. You can see on the map in front of you. This is a zoomed out aerial photo of the area. I just found that you couldn't really see much of what was going on in that first photo, so I thought I'd give you a second one. You can see here to the rear, to the north of the subject property, we find primarily residential uses in a residential subdivision. To the east on Commercial Street, we see a middle school, and on the south side of Commercial Street, we see sort of a bit of a hodgepodge of uses in building forms that used to be houses but are often operated as businesses, as well as a small plaza. And then a very large-scale commercial development to the south that includes the Home Depot, the PetSmart, the Michaels, the Lawtons, etc. To the west is additional commercial uses. The zoning of the area reflects the current uses. We see commercially zoned properties on Commercial Street and residentially zoned properties to the north, as well as there's a comprehensive residential zone to the south. That's a fairly large vacant parcel. We do see the O1 applied to, there is a water course that runs through there, so the O1 has been applied. And then the C6 is a comprehensive commercial development zone, and that development has been developed under development agreement as required by that zone. Our land use designations are similar again, commercial along Commercial Street and residential to the north and then to the south on that R5 parcel. This is a photo of the subject property. You may all be familiar with it. It does operate as a business office, a tax and accountant's office on the ground floor with the residential unit above. You can see the residential garage to the rear. This is a photo from the side of that building. You can see again the residential uses above and the commercial below. And then these are photos of the garage. So this is the garage from the front. You see the two garage doors along with an access door. This accesses the lower unit. The upper unit is accessed by a stairway. This is the side of the building. So the Commercial Street is to the right of this building. And then this is the rear of the building in the top left corner photo. This is the rear of the building, and that's access to the second unit above. This is an image of the site plan. As I said, the property is quite small. It has a lot area of 9,257 square feet with approximately 90 feet of frontage along Commercial Street. We see the office building with the apartment above, along with the garage, and then here's the shed. The property is paved for the most part and is flat. There is a retaining wall to the rear because there is quite a great difference as you move north. It does go up. So in terms of our policy review, policy 3.2.9 indicates that council shall consider only by development agreement in all commercial zones proposals for residential developments that cannot meet applicable zone standards. So those zone standards, as I mentioned before, are that residential units are meant to be located above, behind, or below commercial units, but in the same structure, not in a separate structure. So in evaluating such development agreements, council shall be satisfied that the conditions that prevent the proposal from being permitted as of right in the designation is addressed by the DA. So in this regard, we are permitting the uses, given that our policy review indicated that there were no concerns related to just addressing it by permitting them. If the proposal is for a residential or mixed-use development, council shall be satisfied that the residential component of the proposal has a compact built form and doesn't consist of low-density housing forms. So where this is being, this use is being developed within an existing building, we would like, and given the small lot size, there are constraints in terms of providing enough parking. So an additional 2 units on this property that already has an additional unit, we wouldn't necessarily consider this a low density development, even though it is for essentially a 2 unit. That the proposal is oriented towards the street and contributes to a vibrant and active streetscape. So in this regard, we already have the commercial building located in front, providing that presence on the street. The proposal incorporates pedestrian-friendly features into the design. We have included in the development agreement requirements for pedestrian markings on the property to enable safe passage towards the residential units. And we also want to make sure that the proposal meets the general DA criteria, which are that the proposal is in keeping with the intent of the MPS, which we believe it is, that it does not cause negative financial impact on the municipality, which we believe it will not. We believe it is compatible with the uses surrounding it. Since it does abut other residential uses, we believe that this residential use will be compatible with those to the rear. The adequacy and proximity of school, recreation, and community facilities. We did review that there is a middle school very close to the subject site. There's also an elementary school to the west. on, I believe it's on Cornwallis, if I remember correctly, but it is close by. And the Louis Millet Center and Lockhart Ryan Park is also within walking distance, providing additional recreation amenity. We want to ensure that it's not going to create any traffic hazards or congestion, and we don't believe it will. Commercial Street is already a fairly busy road. It does have capacity, though, for additional traffic and is a main transportation artery through New Minas. We want to ensure the adequacy of fire protection as well as sewer and water services. We did consult the appropriate agencies and did not receive any concerns. We don't believe that there's a potential for flooding, given that there's no new development on this property and it has not been causing any drainage issues to date. We don't expect there to be any more. Negative impacts on wellfield or other groundwater supplies. This property is located in Wellfield Overlay C, which does not have any restrictions related to residential uses. Pollution. We want to ensure that the development does not cause pollution, including soil erosion, siltation, and again, without any new development, we're not overly concerned about this. The property is not in proximity to any lakes or farming operations, so we don't expect any negative impacts as a result. And the site is suitable for development in terms of grade soils, geological conditions, etc. So the summary of the draft DA, we are enabling 2 residential units within the existing accessory building, and we are requiring a parking plan at the time of permitting just to ensure that the parking will function appropriately. In terms of our process, we are here at the public hearing. Staff sent a total of 40 letters to property owners within 500 feet, and we did have ads in the newspaper on the 20th and the 27th. With that, we have met all of the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and I would pass it back to the Mayor for public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Mosier. Again, for the public's information, the process is that at public hearings, the function of councillors is to act in the quasi-judicial capacity, meaning they hear representations from the public concerning the application after they've heard the application explained to them and heard the recommendation of staff. But they don't debate the matter at a public hearing. And if there is any debate to take place, it will take place at the council meeting that considers the motion to approve or otherwise. So having said that, if any councillor has any issues that they require clarification on with respect to the presentation, now would be the time to put your lights on. I see none, Ms. Mosier. So if any other person wishes to comment on the application, they're welcome to come forward at the present time, and they would come to this mic that's right in front of me. Nobody on this application? Yes. If when you get to the mic, you just state your name and place of residence, that would be helpful. Thank you. For the purposes of the record.
Sarah Pilgrim, and I live at 9351 Commercial, which is directly next to this building. So I've received this letter in the mail today. I'm sure it was sent earlier. However, so I didn't really get to prepare a whole lot. I'm quite nervous because I'm not much speaking like this. We understand there's currently a housing crisis. We also understand that we want people to do well and make income in other ways, but we have an issue with this property happening because first and foremost, we moved in to our current house. We've been there for about 6 years now. The property was like this garage that's there wasn't, sorry, I'm shaking.
That's okay. There's no hurry here.
Yeah. So it wasn't actually completed at the time. The tie back on the side of the building was quite kind of grayed out, and we were like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's going to be. And then we moved in. They started building it again, almost as though maybe there was issues before with building, and then they put an end to it. That was our take on it. So now at this point, it's so close, I'm not sure if it actually even kind of goes with like property lines, as in like distance from that building to our property line. I guess that's probably something we could look into, but it's really close to our property. I don't know if that matters, but we're concerned with like the comings and goings. So like right now, we've lived there for 6 years. Like I said, we don't know actually who lives there because there's constant coming and going to different property, people who live in the apartment above. We've had a lot of issues with prior to, I guess, this being completed. People seem to be kind of in that garage a lot. They're up late and like making a lot of noise. One night we had like them there was a fire in the backyard. My partner was asleep in our house. I was at work. We both work at the hospital. We work nights, so I was working nights. And he got actually like woken from sleep and went outside because someone had a fire in the property next door and something had exploded and actually woke the neighbor behind on our other side. So 2 of them were kind of out there like, what's going on? Something exploded. I don't really know. But the fire pit, I guess, was so close in their jammed little area of things. We had to call, we've had people there loud at night. We had to call the police like 3 a.m. in the morning. We're not people who like to call, but we had to. And we were told at the time to call the supervisor. I don't know how we'd get that number, but because they've had multiple complaints for the tenants in the property currently. So I guess our concern is with having additional apartments in a building that is just kind of jammed in there, that there would be, I guess, more tenants, more issues with people next door like that. Having a negative impact on our property value as well. Right now, there isn't really even adequate parking for what is currently in there with the business and the apartments and the coming and going in the garage. So with 2 additional apartments, I don't really know how it would be safe and adequate for parking. I'm not trying to just complain about it either. I just feel like it will really impact our own property and just the quietness of our house, our backyard, the close, it's going to impact us for sure. So I don't think it should happen, but that's just our opinion in living that close to the property. Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Don't feel rushed, if you didn't get to your notes.
I had like a couple little jot notes because I just saw the letter this evening, so it's kind of like a last minute thing. I think that should be it. That's all I can think of at the minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this application? If the applicant is here, does the applicant wish to speak? Ms. Mosier, do you know whether the applicant's here? I'm sorry, I turned your light off, didn't I?
He is.
You do?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. All right, then with respect to this particular item, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, and we will move on to the next item, which is an application to enter into a development agreement at 88 Coleman Rd, Waterville, PID number 55369302, and Mr. Fredericks will be introducing that file. Mr. Fredericks, when you're ready.
Thanks very much, and good evening. We do have this is a public hearing for another development agreement. In this case, it's located in the rural area outside of Waterville, and it's a development agreement for a new farm dwelling on an existing farm property that's zoned agricultural. So Donald Baker is the applicant in this case, who I acknowledge is in the audience with us today. Mr. Baker's applied to add a dwelling accessory to a farm property that's been within his family for 30 years approximately, and over those 30 years, the applicant and his family have been growing a variety of vegetables and fruits on about 20 acres of that, and some other portions have been leased to corn and hay production as well. So it's been an agricultural property, but has not doesn't have a dwelling on it currently. So the applicant has applied to build a new dwelling, which we would refer to as a farm dwelling because it's in the agricultural zone. The applicant would like to be on site, living on the property to manage a UPIC and the year-round maintenance of a small-scale farm. So we are located in the rural area of the county, north of 101, north of Waterville. So this is the property. It's fairly large. It's about 30 acres in size, and it is zoned agricultural, along with all the properties around it are also zoned in the agricultural A1 zone. This photograph shows kind of the range of forms of agriculture that's occurring on here. There are orchards, there are market gardens, there are more large-scale hay production and corn production as well. So it has has quite a varied kind of form of agriculture. These photographs just demonstrate some of the infrastructure and the investment that's been put into the property. This just demonstrates some fruit trees, cherries and peaches and plums and pears. This is an example of one of the market garden areas. Squash, cucumbers, and potatoes, those sorts of things grow here and are sold at local farmers markets. This photograph shows some high bush blueberries that have been planted for a number of years as well. And there's an existing barn on the property, and so this is the main structure on the property right now. And that same barn is visible in this photograph in the distance here, so that's the roof of that same barn. And here is kind of a footprint of the proposed dwelling in its current, or in its proposed location. It's about a 26-foot by 26-foot home. It's not a gigantic property, sorry, not a gigantic home, but a dwelling appropriate for the applicant living on his own. So this site plan shows some of those market garden areas and hay field production, and defines a building envelope of approximately 80 feet by 100 feet right in the middle. It's close to the road. And this kind of siting or location criteria is part of this type of development agreement where we want to see that the farm dwellings are located in an area that's not going to use up too much valuable agricultural land, and usually that means positioning it close to the road. So a new farm dwelling can be considered in the Kings County agricultural zone through a development agreement. And this is intended to apply to full-time active farmers or new farmers that have relocated to the county. And in considering these kind of proposals, Council takes the following into consideration. We look to receive a site plan, and that site plan should show the crops, location of crops and barns and pastures. We just looked at that site plan. Other things that are required for this type of development agreement are the submission of a professional business plan, demonstration as well of the intent to farm, and that could be farm financing, could be infrastructure that's been put into the property. And so in this case, we've got a lot of irrigation and certainly a lot of plants in the ground, high bush blueberries and fruit trees. The applicant has certainly a history of farming and a clear intent to continue to farm. There's about 20 acres planted on this property now. And again, drainage system and irrigation systems are evidence of that intent or dedication to farm. The applicant has registered his farm with the Nova Scotia Department of Agriculture, and staff consider these attributes to demonstrate the applicant's dedication to farming this land. The business plan is something that is encouraged to be reviewed by a third party, in this case sort of the Federation of Agriculture, who did review this business plan, and they had no concerns with the proposed form of farming on the property. With every development agreement, we also look at a list of general criteria. These are explored in more detail in the Planning Advisory Committee staff report. But in general, we're looking at the development agreement is consistent with the intent of the planning strategy, and certainly we feel like it is. The planning strategy enables farm dwellings to locate in the agricultural zone, but does limit other residential forms of development in the agricultural zone. We look at financial impact on the municipality and feasibility of services. Most of this is on-site servicing in this case, so septic systems and wells. We look at potential for land use conflict, and in this case we're talking about a farm in a fairly agricultural area, so we don't expect that to be an issue. The site is very, very much a suitable location for a dwelling, and there are no well fields in the area. The process has gone through a public information meeting and staff review. It received a positive recommendation from the Planning Advisory Committee and was considered by Council last month for the first reading, or initial consideration rather. And public properties within 500 feet were notified again of this public hearing. There hasn't been a tremendous amount of public input, but certainly Mr. Baker's story has reached the press and has been in the newspaper. So there seems to be some support, but we haven't heard much opposition or concern from any of the neighbors. The public hearing was also advertised in the local newspaper. All statutory requirements have been met. And with that, I pass it back to the mayor for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fredericks. Any questions of clarification from any council member? No? Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak to this particular application? No. Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? No. Then, having heard the presentation and there being no other submissions or questions from council, I thank Mr. Fredericks, and we'll adjourn this particular application as well, which concludes our public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Fredericks.
Thank you.
And with that, if I may, if nobody needs a break at this time, do they? That was fairly quick. We'll call the Municipal Council meeting of October 4th, 2022 to order. It's 6:27 p.m. And we always begin our every meeting with a roll call, which is an electronic process. So for the purposes of the record, we have an electronic record of those councillors that are in attendance. So I'd ask councillors to signify that now in the form of a roll call as soon as the light is on. And generally, for the purposes of the public, again, it takes about, when we use this electronic system, and we do for voting as well, it takes about 10 seconds or so for the results to come up, and you'll see the results on the screen at the present time. So councillors Meisner, Harding, and Windsor are absent from the meeting, as I mentioned when we opened the public hearing, and all other councillors are present. So obviously it's only the councillors present that will be voting on any of the matters or debating, although Councillor Meisner may conceivably arrive later on in the meeting. Moving to item 2, approval of the agenda. The agenda has been circulated for every councillor to read, and I'm looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Allen has moved and the Deputy Mayor has seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate now or otherwise. The motion has been unanimously approved. And again, for public consumption, once an agenda has been approved, and occasionally there are changes to it, and there have not been on this occasion, but it gives, once approved, it gives councillors an opportunity to assess whether or not there's any item on the agenda with which they might have a personal conflict of interest. That being a financial interest generally, either to themselves or their family or their employer. If any councillor has a conflict of interest to declare, would they do it now, please? There are no conflicts disclosed, so we'll move to item 4. The minutes of the meeting of September the 6th, 2022 have been circulated. And if there are no errors or omissions, I'm looking for a motion to approve those minutes, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Granger. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate now, or if not in favor, also indicate now. The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving to item 5, business arising from the minutes of September the 6th, 2022. Is there any business arising from the minutes that any councillor wishes to highlight? Seeing none, that moves us to item 6, the Planning Advisory Committee recommendations. And Councillor Armstrong, who is the chair of that committee, are you dealing with those recommendations, Councillor Armstrong?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item that we have is that Municipal Council give final consideration to entering into a development agreement for the property located at 9347 Commercial Street, that's PID 55210-538 New Minas, to legalize one residential unit and permit the development of an additional residential unit within an accessory building as described in Appendix C of the report dated August 9, 2022. I so move.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Second by Councillor Allen. Discussion on the motion.
I have
Councillor Armstrong.
no, that's okay. I was going to ask a question of clarification, but that's okay. We're good.
Deputy Mayor Lutz.
Thank you, Mayor Matard. I noticed in the report, now I have to find it. Sorry, just 1 second. Well, I was curious if there's plans to renovate the property. Do we know of any plans to renovate? Like, I'm just trying to sort out in my mind where these apartments are going. So we have one currently on the ground floor, and there will be one more on the second and third floor. Am I correct and those would be one apartment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. There's one on the ground floor, and then there's one on this, it's a 2.5-story building. So on the top 2 floors would be the second one.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Armstrong, while Ms. Mosier is there, did you have a clarification question?
I just wanted to speak to the comments from the lady that spoke at the public hearing, and just wanted to clarify that the setbacks have been met for this particular property in relation to hers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Armstrong, the building was constructed as an accessory structure, so it was subject to different setbacks than a main building would have been subjected to. However, I would point out this is Commercial Street in New Minas. There are, while I am sympathetic to Ms. Pilgrim's concerns and certainly what she has been going through, those types of impacts could feasibly occur on any residential property in the municipality, and impacts from neighboring commercial uses could also be similar to what they have already experienced.
So the setback is not the same as the setback for a house would be?
Well, the commercial zone doesn't permit houses as of right, so we don't actually have setbacks for houses. That's why we have this development.
It's actually a bit non-conforming at the present time than the entire residential use. We have residential on top of commercial.
Correct, but it's not a non-conforming use because the units in the garage have never been legal.
And this legalizes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any questions arising out of mine? No. Ms. Javrik?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to further clarify for the councillor that had the garage been constructed as a main structure originally, the setback would have been 10 feet. It was constructed to meet accessory buildings, which is supposed to be 4 feet. It was actually constructed at 7 feet 4 inches, so it exceeded the requirement at the time of construction, but it didn't meet the main structure requirement of 10 feet, 3 feet short.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Any other debate on the question? If I may speak then, I too am sympathetic to Ms. Pilgrim's position in as much as it's unpleasant to have neighbors who disturb the properties next to them. Regrettably, it's difficult to control who our neighbors are and to ensure that they have the proper respect for the people to whom they live next. And regrettably, that happens on more occasions than we would like to think. The noise item can be dealt with through the noise bylaw that is in the village, and I would encourage her to report that. I expect the RCMP responds to those enforcement regulations. But it's not this particular property that results in that kind of a problem. It's the people that live within those properties, and if we need to report those people, then it's necessary to do that on a regular basis until it stops. And the landlord should find out about it in one form or another, whether that's through direct call or otherwise. But in terms of land use planning and the permission or otherwise of this particular application, unfortunately, that's not a factor that comes into consideration. Is there any thing arising from my comments? No? Then, if you're ready for the question, all those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. The motion is passed with one negative vote. Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That Municipal Council give final consideration to, give final consideration to entering into a development agreement to permit a farm dwelling accessory to a farming business in the agricultural A1 zone on the property located at 88 Coleman Road, PID 553-68302, Waterville, which is substantively the same for minor differences in form as the draft set out in Appendix D of the report dated August 9, 2022.
Thank you.
Very
Do
happy to move that.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Killam. Discussion on the motion. I see no discussion. This is a matter that has come before us on a number of occasions, and so I think it's been discussed almost ad nauseum, and we're ready for the vote. All those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. The motion's passed unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Baker. Thanks for coming. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting if you don't want to, sir. Similarly, with regard to any of the presentations that were made at the public hearing, it's not necessary to stay any further if you wish to escape, although I can understand why you would want to stay. We're moving on to item 7, presentations. Petition for sidewalk at intersection of Highway 1 and Avon Lane, Greenwich. Mr. Greenslade, is Mr. Greenslade here? If you'd come to the mic, sir, and just identify yourself for the purposes of the record and your address, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank Council for allowing me to appear here tonight. My name is Robert Greenslade. I live at 133 Avon Lane in Greenwich, and I've lived there 23 years. And I took a little petition around our street and the next street, and to see about getting a crosswalk put in. The traffic has increased substantially since we moved into that house. And I have a little grandson. And we play out there all the time. The traffic is just terrible. And then when Noggins has their functions on the weekends, it's next to impossible to get across that street because there's no sidewalks right from Wolfville right up to McKinley's auto body. And that's about 3.5 kilometers. And of course, anybody crosses the street is jaywalking. And the traffic, the speed zone there is 70 or 60, and the traffic that flies by there is just, they're going way too fast. So this is why I propose to have a crosswalk put in with a flashing speed zone, try to slow the people down. Since May of this year, myself and my grandson, we almost got hit twice trying to cross that street. And
I'm sorry. I missed that last comment.
Since May of this year, my grandson and I, we almost got hit twice trying to cross from Avon Lane to the sidewalk, which is on the north side of the #1 highway.
Okay, thank you. Well, while you're presenting, if you don't mind answering a question, where is the nearest crosswalk? Where would you have to go to get to the nearest
McKinley's auto body in Minas, and you don't get another one until you get to the Wolfville town limits.
Okay, thank you. Which is approximately?
I think it's 3.5 kilometers.
Okay, thanks.
Now, I have a petition signed here. I went to, like I said, a number of people. I have 47 names attached to this petition, and I'd like to pass it out to all the councillors just so that everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Of course.
Okay.
If you give it to the clerk, she'll see that it gets circulated.
I have more, okay. So like I said, we've been there 23 years, and that traffic is just deadly going across there. And to get the speeds slowed down, we got to get a flashing speed zone there. People just drive far too fast. And we're right across the street from Crosby and Whitten Honey. And I was talking to Mr. Whitman, Tom, the other night, and he was saying that his daughter was hit right in front of his house about 30 years ago. It was just a knockdown. She wasn't seriously injured, but it was a knockdown. So that was 30 years ago. So we have much more traffic now than 30 years ago. Plus, this little girl just up the street from us, she's in grade 4, I believe, and she has to legally, she can't cross the street to the sidewalk. She has to come down our side, the south side, and go up Avon Lane to catch the bus. And she's the only one that catches that bus. So it's really dangerous for that little girl. So I would just like everyone to be able to read that document that I have there and the 48 people that we have signed on it. And there's an RCMP officer just on the next street, Jessica's Way, and he signed it as well. He said, yes, something has to be done. We go to that walking trail all the time across the street, the old train tracks. And there's people walking their dogs across there, and they just can't get by.
Okay, sir.
So everything is there in that in the document that I had passed out. So I appreciate it very much if everyone would have a look at it, and where it goes from here, time will tell.
I assure you that they will, sir. But if you'd stay right where you are for a second,
Sure.
I have some folks who would like to ask you a question. First of all, Deputy Mayor, please.
Actually, do you mind going to Councillor Granger first and then coming back to me while I...
Be happy to. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so you know, we got this in a package that we get ahead of time.
Okay.
So we have already had this, and we've
All
already
right. I
had
just
a
wanted to
chance
make sure
read it.
everybody was on the same base.
Oh, I don't blame you.
That I have here, right?
I don't blame you a bit.
All
I just
right.
wanted to know, have you spoken to Noggins about?
Yes, the signatures on this petition about that as well from
And
them.
they, okay.
And they're totally in agreement.
Excellent, thank you.
All the businesses there, I mean, Noggins, the Honeybee Farm, Bishop's little bakery there, they're all going to benefit because we as citizens legally can't cross that street. We're taking our lives in our hands. And it's busy. It really is busy.
I agree with you. I've seen it busy.
Oh,
I've been on it busy. And I
last
actually
Sunday.
think I've seen you playing with your grandson.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm out there all the time with them, so. And heaven forbid that somebody gets hit.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you. Now, a lot of people told me, I shouldn't say a lot of people, about 4 different people told me I won't get anywhere with this petition. But the way I look at it, we don't have it now. We have nothing to lose, except a life, right? So that's why I took it upon myself to go to all the neighbors and have them signed if they want to sign it. So we'll take it from here and see what happens.
Okay, sir. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Matart. I would just wanted to thank you for caring about your community and bringing this forward, because not everybody takes it upon themselves to do something in their community to try and make it better. So
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much, and I hope your neighbors also appreciate and recognize you for doing that.
Oh, I think that everyone on my street signed.
Yeah.
And
good.
on Jessica's Way, everyone that I came in contact with, they signed as well.
So I actually have questions, not to put our Director of Engineering and Public Works on the spot, but there's a couple things that come to mind as you're speaking. So we have a complicated relationship with sidewalks with the municipality, and that they're not always our responsibility. But we do build sidewalks, and sometimes sidewalks could lead to crosswalks. And we do put speed display device priority lists up, so the flashing lights that tell folks how fast they're going. That often acts as a traffic calming measure. So I'm looking over at Mr. Quinn. This isn't a school zone, I don't think. But curious if this area of the county, well, there's a few things on my mind. Whether or not it's on the sidewalk priority list, which something tells me it probably isn't based on our criteria, but I wanted to ask. And the second thing was, we undertook an active transportation plan, which tries to get folks. I live on the mountain, so I don't have a lot of access to active transportation infrastructure. But folks like you who live in the main core, our hope was to try and get people safely connected to the trail that you referenced. So I'm wondering if, off the top of his head, if Mr. Quinn knows if this area is under consideration for something that would be a connection to the Harvest Moon Trail, or if he has any thoughts. Not to put him on the spot.
Oh, thank you. Through
Mr. Quinn, she said off the top of your head, but I wouldn't recommend that. If you can help, though, it would be appreciated.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor, we actually did have an opportunity to talk to representatives of Nova Scotia Public Works about this afternoon. So we've advised them of this petition, so they've taken away and they've given us, say, their initial, off the top of their head sort of thoughts. I think the one that they had mentioned is that at each of the 2 roads under the Motor Vehicle Act, they do exist as unmarked crosswalks. Not that necessarily alleviate some of the concerns that has been presented here, but at least that much is a foundation for a start of some of the discussion with that. They've taken it back with that. I'd say their initial impression, they weren't entirely sure, but they were willing to at least take it under advisement and take a little bit more look of it, because said it was a rather brief conversation earlier this afternoon. So in fairness to them, they really haven't had much time to consider it. In terms of the AT, I'll say I believe Greenwich is considered one of the corridors, but I don't know the specific. I'd have to refresh my memory on the specifics on what was being contemplated in that area in particular. So, but we'll certainly take the information from the petition and take it under advisement to look look forward and have further discussions with the province on that matter.
Okay,
Yeah, so we do not have a sidewalk on our side, the south side of the highway. There's no sidewalk there.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a bus stop right there as well. And in my mind, that would be a perfect spot for a crosswalk for people getting off the bus to be able to cross to the sidewalk on the north side of the highway.
Yeah. One of the difficulties is the very complicated arrangement the municipalities have with the province in terms of it's the province that has to put the crosswalk in, the municipality has to request it, the province determines the sight lines and whether they're appropriate, and it goes on and on and on. But we try to work with folks like yourself and identify areas like the one that you've identified, and then try to work with the province in order to see what can be done. And we'll certainly, based upon your presentation and the petition, we'll certainly take all of that under advisement and see whether or not there's a solution for you. But there are other lights that have come on, and I'm hoping that they're questions for you, because
Bring them on, I'll try to answer them.
we want to get a full memory bank here.
Yeah. Okay.
So the deputy mayor's back on.
So I just would ask that we have a policy, the speed radar, speed display device priority list policy, and I would just ask that any counselors on that committee add this area to the, so under 5.1, the asset management working group will identify potential new speed display device locations and rank them from highest to lowest. So I would just ask that this area be added as one where the speed display device could be erected, and consider that in the meantime, because government is slow, but these things can go up relatively quickly depending on where you might fall on the list. I'm not on that committee personally, but I would ask all of my counselors who are on that committee to consider this. Thanks.
Could I say one more thing?
Absolutely, sir.
We don't have to have a $250,000 or whatever fee it costs to put crosswalks in. The Port Williams have got a couple of those, the flag systems. You know, of course, I'd love to see flashing lights put in there like they have in Wolfville across from the university. But if we could start with the flag system, have the pavement marked and have the orange, pink flags on either side, and have that flashing speed zone prior to that crosswalk, hopefully a crosswalk, that they'd slow down for the people. It's just another alternative, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea what it would cost to put in a electronic crosswalk or with the flashing lights, but I know it would be costly. But I truly believe we need to do something.
Okay, sir, don't go away on me. Councillor Hurdle has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I was going to hopefully direct this question towards Mr. Quinn, because I've had prior conversations similar to Highway 1 where there's been requests to have crosswalks put in place, and I'm wondering if in this instance it holds true that to have a crosswalk we need to have a sidewalk on either end in which the crosswalk terminates to.
I can answer that.
Sure, I'll take your answer, and I'll also go for Mr. Quinn if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
No, getting back to the location of the sidewalk, or a crosswalk, McKinley's, right there, McKinley's Auto Body at the beginning of New Minas, there's only the crosswalk on the north side.
There's no only sidewalk on the north side, yeah.
There's no sidewalk on the south side.
Yep.
So to have a crosswalk or a sidewalk on both sides, that proves to me it's not absolutely a necessity. It would be nice.
It's certainly an example to point to, yeah, notwithstanding what their policy is.
Yeah, and that's been there for quite some time by McKinley's Auto Body.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Quinn, did you wish to join in that conversation?
Yes, I think through you, Mayor, yes, it's generally the minimum requirement is that they need some sort of, I'll say for lack of a better word, a landing pad for the pedestrian to get across. So they don't necessarily need a full-blown sidewalk per se, but they do need that landing pad sort of a safe haven, if you will, for the pedestrian when they make it to the other side.
Yep. Okay, thank you for that. And the last question is from Mr. Killam. Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Robert.
Hi.
Have you approached the MLAs in the area?
The only one I've really talked to was Councillor Windsor, and he's not here tonight.
No, I was wondering
Member of the
about,
legislature?
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So
I shouldn't say, I contacted Jim Marine, and I've contacted, oh my God, what's his name?
John Lahr?
Yes, and they just said, they set up this meeting here and try to get a petition going. Has to start somewhere. So this would be the best place to start as far as I'm concerned.
agree. I just was hoping that
No.
the petition would get to the provincial people, for sure.
No, I have not. I thought this would be the ideal starting point.
Yeah. I imagine through you, Mayor, that that petition would end up at the province level.
Yes, we'll happily pass it on to the provincial representatives.
Good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Well, you got a lot of attention for your matter.
Well, I truly feel we need to do something before somebody gets hit.
Yeah, it's difficult to use a flag system when the speed zone is 60, right?
Yeah.
Fort Williams, it's 50, for example. Right? Yeah.
But
So-
they got the flashing speed zone right there as well, where the old train tracks used to cross right there in Greenwich, where before you go into the dike, there's a flashing speed zone there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, your representation is appreciated, and we'll take the information, and we'll be considering it, as you've already heard.
okay. Now, I'm going to have to go back to these 47 other people, and they're going to say to me, what happened?
And you say to them, sir, go
Yes,
online and watch the video of our discussion.
Okay. So any time frame, like a year from now, possibly, or 2 years from now, or?
Well, it's entirely dependent upon the province of Nova Scotia
Yeah, okay.
and what other priorities the municipality has
Yeah.
concerning similar requests. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to answer future questions that I'm going to get, that's all. Anyway.
Well, we'll ensure that there's communication with you
Yeah.
at a
all right.
relatively early date to let you know where things are standing at the time.
Okay. Again, I appreciate council allowing me to be here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Moving on to the second presentation, which is concerns regarding the Dexter asphalt plant in the New Minas area, and I believe Krista McDonald's going to present on that. Ms. McDonald, if you just come to the mic, and I understand there's a slide deck that we'll... Are you going to take advantage of the slide deck?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, well, if you'd identify yourself and your place of residence for the purposes of the record, please.
Sorry?
Your name and place of residence for the purpose of the record.
Certainly. My name is Krista McDonald, and I live at 92 Old Farm Lane in New Minas.
Thank you. You go ahead.
So thank you, Council. Good evening. I will be presenting tonight a presentation that was put together by Jerry Watson, who was meant to present. Unfortunately, he fell ill, so I will be doing the presentation in his absence. The presentation is going to be on the impact of the Dexter construction asphalt plant and the impact it has on the citizens living in the area. So a bit of an overview. The plant has been in operation at 17 Standard Paving Road by Dexter Construction, and it's had a persistent negative impact on the people living in the surrounding residential areas. The plant can operate at any time of day or night, and sometimes it does go 7 days a week. The noise and the pollution from this plant is of great concern to those of us who live in the surrounding area. And we have a history of complaints, documented complaints going back at least 12 years, and they've been largely ignored, unfortunately. So a community group of us, neighbors and friends in the area, got together to bring about some change and get our voices heard. So a little bit of history. Before 2010, there was an operation there. It was previously operated by Standard Paving, which was then Lafarge, and there was minimal impact to the community, minimal noise, minimal odor. In November of 2010, Dexter's took over, and the operation started to have serious negative impacts to the people, and complaints began to be documented and filed at that time. In 2015, provincial approval by the Department of Environment for the operation of the plant was renewed based on 1992 guidelines for operation, and this approval is set for renewal in 2025. So this is an overview. That area at the top, the kind of dark area, that's where the pit is. And then you'll notice to the left is Meadow Terrace subdivision. Down on the bottom left is Gulfview, and then Commercial Street winds along. There's some agricultural land up there as well. So this is kind of the primary areas that are affected by the asphalt plant. You can see it's pretty close to housing and parks. So the regulations from 1992 that we are referencing, in Section 6, the approval holder shall operate the facility in a manner which will not result in the generation of unpleasant, offensive, or hazardous odors. Those of us that live next door to the plant can tell you that this is absolutely not being upheld.
Could I just interrupt you there? These section references are from the Provincial Environment Act? Is that?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Section 8 refers to sound, and so there's some levels set for the sounds that are permissible. So 8A, Section 3, 55 decibels between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. So Jerry actually got a decibel meter on his smartphone, and he lives at 72 Old Farm Lane. In June of this year, he measured, and it was the noise was at 67 decibels at 6:45 a.m. And that didn't account for all of the banging and the trucks beeping. That noise wasn't measured in his little experiment, but it is significantly louder. So I'm just going to read a few of some snippets of some of the impact from the residents. We have pages and pages and pages of emails to every level of government you can think of. So we just chose a few to highlight. So the first was Jerry. He and his wife Sharon often bring their 3 boys inside because it's too stinky, as their 4-year-old will say. They've been jarred awake by the noise more times than they can count, and they've even installed sound dampening installation. So that's not helping at all. Sherry Hockey, one of my neighbors who's here tonight, in 2014 wrote, "The air is heavy with asphalt fumes, making it nasty to smell and very unhealthy to breathe. To live in such a lovely area and not be able to go for a walk outside or do gardening, play with my grandchildren is not acceptable." I wrote this message in 2014. My 4-year-old daughter was yet again awoken at 4:50 a.m. this morning by the equipment in the plant. I'm not talking about truck noises, but a loud rumbling I'm assuming must be coming from the crusher, which runs every day, not just a couple weeks a year. Again, another one for me. I cannot accept my children should be forced to breathe in the toxic fumes, which are currently settling in a haze all along Old Farm Lane. My husband and I just came home for lunch, and you can see the fumes billowing up over the tree line. I then ask who is going to do something about this. Ann Harris, another resident of Meadow Terrace, who has lived in the area since before Dexter's took over, talks about how since Dexter's took over, things have changed significantly. She mentions that the grinder and backup beepers start before the sun has risen. The fumes are so strong you can actually taste the oil that blanketed our subdivision and our home. That was in 2016. John and Sarah in 2018. It's 1:36 a.m. on Monday morning, and I'm awakened by the sounds of beeping trucks, random banging, and other loud machinery. If it was a neighbor making this noise, I would be completely justified in phoning the police. But for some inexplicable reason, because it's Dexter's, I just have to accept it. And again, about a year later, John, this is me begging you guys to stop using the beeping on your trucks during plant operations. It's midnight, it's all I can hear. This morning they started well before 6 a.m. And a message from Judy and Harold. We decided to build here on Old Farm Lane in 1978 because of the location, fresh, clean air, and quiet atmosphere. Because of the Dexter plant, we've lost all those attributes, and still conditions continue to deteriorate. And that was in the fall of last year. So because our voices are not being heard, we formed a community group of concerned citizens from the area. A number of those citizens met with Dexter's this past June to voice concerns. They had a very amicable meeting. They listened and agreed to work on routing trucks in such a way to minimize the noise. But it's really hard to judge if that's made much of a difference. So we have set up a petition through John Lohr's office to be presented to the provincial government. We have 116 signatures to date. And so the petition reads, whereas the Department of Environment and Climate Change regulate the industrial approvals for asphalt plants in the province of Nova Scotia, and whereas the residents and landowners of Greenwich and New Minas feel their quality of life and air quality are being compromised by the coexistence of the Dexter asphalt facility located at 17 Standard Paving Road, Kings County. Whereas concerned residents have been voicing their concerns for many years with no action by local or provincial officials, we, the undersigned, urge the Department of Environment and Climate Change to consult with local residents and landowners to gain social license before extending any further industrial approvals to Dexter Construction for the operation located at 17 Standard Paving Road. And so tonight we're asking you to support us. We're requesting that you provide a letter supporting our concerns to the Nova Scotia Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and that we may have a copy of the same so we can submit it with our petition to the provincial government this fall. And so that's it. Thank you for your time. I can answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, Sherry probably can.
Yes, Mr. Hockey's been here before, I believe, on this matter, yeah.
Yes.
So there are some questions. First of all, Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to our presenter. Are the folks in that area on water, town water or village water, or are they on their own wells?
We are on village water for the most part in Meadow Terrace, and I think village water extends well into Greenwich, but I couldn't say what with 100% certainty.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from councillors for clarification? That generally means it's pretty darn clear. So I want to thank you for your presentation. This has come to our attention on a number of occasions. Speaking as a councillor, I personally have great empathy with your situation. And I'm sure that if we can be of any assistance in this regard, that I can't speak for council until they've dealt with it, but I would certainly be inclined to think there would be similar empathy around the table. So I thank you very much for your presentation, and to those who came with you. It's appreciated. We'll deal with it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a copy of the petition as well for you, Jane.
Deputy Mayor?
No, it's just, I'm curious about, I think it's wonderful that folks are getting petitions. I'm curious if there is maybe a misconception that we have a means to deal with them in like an official way? I know, just this is a total aside, but it just comes to mind that if folks are being instructed to make petitions, that it's likely not from our office because we have no formal mechanism by which to receive them other than as kind of a point of information, whereas we used to accept petitions, for example, in the J-Class Road situation, I believe. Yep, okay, getting nods over there. So I'm just wondering if we need to have some communication with our MLA's offices around just to clarify that there's no triggering mechanism that petitions create at the municipality that I'm aware of, and if folks are maybe being misinformed in some capacity, that there might be, I guess just that if folks don't need to go to their neighbors and get signatures to get our attention, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and that I know it's a lot of effort and it brings awareness, which is a good thing, but it's not required, I guess, to present here or to have council act on something. So I just wanted to, I wonder if we should clear that up, because I know there was an election recently provincially, and potentially they have new staff that might not be aware of our processes. So just as a point of information, maybe we reach out and connect there.
Thanks, Deputy. I think you answered your own question. But I'll add to that the previous presenter indicated that it was recommended to him by provincial representatives that he bring his matter forward to council. That's perfectly okay and appropriate, because in fact in that instance there is a bit of a shared jurisdiction between the province and the municipality. In the case of this particular presentation, it's the province, because once they take jurisdiction over something, there's not a way for the municipality to step in. But that's not to say that the municipality can't support and influence the opinions of our provincial representatives. But to the Deputy Mayor's point, we have had occasion in recent months where, because there has been a change in a lot of the members of the legislature, and they have obviously brought with them their executive assistants, or whatever the new name for the executive assistants is, that there is some misunderstanding of what's even in their offices, what's within municipal jurisdiction and what's really in provincial jurisdiction. And we will sort that out, where we have tried to sort it out on other matters previously, but that doesn't detract in any way from the presentations that have been made here this evening, or in any way from the fact that we're able to assist you in your representations to the appropriate authorities that can do something about it. Did you wish to speak, Ms. Hockey? Please. If you come, you'd have to come up to the mic, I'm afraid. And then identify yourself for the purposes of the record.
Hello, I'm Sherry Hockey, one of the concerned neighbors. I just wanted all of you to know that this petition that we have presented was actually prepared by the government through John Moore's office, and that it's considered to be a prayer through whatever process, and that they will be presenting it to caucus this fall.
Excellent, thank you.
That's all.
That's good information, thank you. Nothing else on this presentation? And thank you for your presentations, and once again I offer you the escape opportunity, but you can certainly stay if you wish. We're never offended when people decide to leave these meetings, because we do tend to go on. We're moving on now to item 8, administration. 8A has to do with the repeal of policy HR-06-021, COVID-19 vaccination 7 days notice, and Ms. Brooke is going, no, she's not. We are favored by HR. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Tonight, I'm here to present the staff recommendation to repeal policy HR-06-021, the COVID-19 vaccine policy. While I'm the one here presenting tonight, I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge Vicki Brooke and Rob Frost for their contributions. First, council adopted the policy in October 2021. At that time, reviews were set for every 4 months. The policy was brought as a means to fulfill the municipality's health and safety obligations, and it applied to members of council, employees, citizen appointees to committees of council. The policy required either full vaccination or for participation in a workplace testing program. Staff are now recommending that council repeal this policy. Staff recognizes that there are continued risks associated with COVID-19. However, the removal of the province's state of emergency vaccine requirements for most places other than high-risk settings and the removal of other restrictions on vaccine status indicate the policy is no longer required. Despite recommending repeal of the policy, protective measures such as physical distancing, masking as desired, and hand sanitizing are still recommended to limit the spread of virus. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, do we have the recommendation will be that Municipal Council provide 7 days notice per section 48 sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act to repeal this policy. Are there questions of the presenter? Deputy Mayor.
My only question would be that can we keep it on hand in case we need to reenact it in the future?
We will keep it on hand.
Perfect, thank you.
Perish the thought. We're fighting with your light there. Okay, Councillor Hurtle.
I was just going to make the motion.
All right, you may do so. There's no other lights on. Motion's made. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Granger. Any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor Lutz.
I would just, on the motion, remind folks of the importance of being vaccinated and that there's appointments available for your fall booster.
Mine's not till Saturday. The CAO was today. The chair of PAC is not feeling all that great this evening. But she's been vaccinated. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. Motion's unanimously passed. Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Moving on then to item 9, Budget and Finance Committee recommendation, September 16, 2022, regarding consolidation of Audit Committee and Budget and Finance Committee. And the chair of the committee, Councillor Hurtle, is going to speak to this. Aren't you, Councillor Hurtle?
I certainly am. I just pulled up a bylaw and research as we were speaking, so let me hop ahead to that. The recommendation is that Municipal Council approve the consolidation of the Budget and Finance Committee and the Audit Committee per the request of the decision dated September 16th, 2022. And I so move.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Granger. Discussion on the motion? I see no discussion. All those in favor or otherwise of the motion, please vote now. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. And now I'm going to Councillor Armstrong for the next item, Nominating Committee recommendation, September 22nd, regarding citizen member appointment to the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Oh, hang on. I'm not there yet.
You're not there yet? It's on the screen. Yeah.
I was way behind. Okay. That Municipal Council appoint Donald Noss as a citizen member of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee for the remainder of the term ending April 30, 2024. I so move.
Thank you. And the seconder, please. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's passed unanimously, thank you. I'm sorry to go back to this item, but did we have a motion prepared for the acceptance of the presentations? The receiving of the presentations, yes. And did we put it and pass it? No. May I have a motion to receive the presentations? Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Hurtle. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. My apologies for missing that. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. And moving now to item 11, correspondence. Could I have a motion to receive the correspondence? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote now. And while we're voting, we only have one item of correspondence that we're receiving, and that's the Community Health Board Review Update and Accomplishment Report, which you've all received, dated September the 16th. That's passed unanimously, thank you. And moving on to item 12, Board and Committee Reports. Councillor Armstrong, on the issue, on the report for Trans-County Transportation Society Board, did you have anything to add to your written report?
No.
No? Thank you. Any questions for the councillor on her report? No? That's the only written report that we've received. Are there any oral reports to give? Councillor Hurtle first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relating to the Deputy Mayor's concerns from earlier, we had the Asset Management Committee, so it's going to be a month before we get back to that, but I'll certainly take her prior comments into consideration. In today's Asset Management Committee, we had full attendance and reviewed our work plan, some of the software updates and concerns with the asset management software, and the majority of the meeting revolved around discussion of the recent asset management conference, the Ames Network conference, of which a number of staff and councillors attended, learning more about asset management and how it can positively add to the municipal planning. And that is everything, unless there's questions.
All right, sir. Any questions of the councillor on his report? No? Deputy Mayor Lutz.
Oh, not a question, just some board reports of my own. While I have everyone here, looking for an alternate for Thursday at 1:30 p.m. for the Trails Society. I unfortunately have a conflict, as does our alternate. So if anyone is interested on Thursday, October 6th at 1:30 to go to the Trails, Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition meeting, let me know. I can send you the agenda. But I have a sense that they've been very busy cleaning up from Fiona, but it did not take them very long at all to have the entire Kings County portion of the Harvest Moon Trail completely free of debris and open to the public again. It took very little time. So just a big shout out to Rick and Noreen. They were saying that they really missed their summer students who were essential this summer. But just a big shout out to them for just consistently stepping up after big weather events, which unfortunately are more and more common. And then secondly, I was unable to attend a Annapolis Valley Library Board meeting, which was at 6 o'clock this evening. But I can report that we're well on our way to getting a new permanent CEO, which is very exciting news for the Library Board because our acting CEO has been doing a wonderful job, but I think she's doing 2 jobs, so she's probably looking forward to just having one again. So I will update council when we have a permanent replacement for Anne Marie and Angela. And and then if you're going to the NSFM conference, get your registration in. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any questions of the Deputy Mayor regarding her report? No? Those are all the reports, so I'm looking for a motion that Municipal Council receive the board and committee reports as attached to the agenda in addition to those provided verbally this evening, please. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Killam. Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. That's unanimously passed. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the meeting? Councillor Armstrong first.
I'd like to apologize first for going backwards, but when we discussed, we made the motion and passed the motion to bring the Budget and Finance and Audit Committees together. I had some questions and I forgot to ask them. Can I ask them now?
Sure.
Because I see Mr.
Because it's
Stone
only,
over there, and
it's
he's just
only
dying to
25
end.
after 7.
I know,
yeah.
he's just dying to answer my question.
We have to stay longer.
By putting the two together, I understand that there's overlap. So the Budget and Finance Committee is going to absorb basically the Audit Committee and bring some of that in. It's going to be the Budget and Finance Committee only, right? Oh, it's going to be the Audit Committee. So where do the citizen appointees that have been will they still be there?
Suppose I can make myself a little more heard. Yeah, so the plan is that the Audit Committee would remain with the citizen appointees as per the MJ requirement. Yeah.
Okay. So no Budget and Finance Committee, Audit Committee only?
Right.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Because it is a legislative requirement that we have an audit committee. Yeah. Councillor Granger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question about cleanup from Fiona. I've had a lot of constituents that are unable to get rid of debris, can't afford the tipping fees, and I'm wondering if there's any special thing that happens after a special event as Fiona with the Valley Waste that could help these people out.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and based upon your having raised it, we'll pursue it and get an answer for you if the answer is not in the room at the present time. I mean, there may be provincial monies available to assist people like that, or there may be a program that Valley Waste can put on and get paid for from the province. We'll certainly pursue that. Thank you for raising it.
Great, thank you.
Take the opportunity to point out that Jason Hahn has suffered through our entire meeting this evening. Thank you, Mr. Hahn, for being here. We appreciate it. Any comments from the public? Mr. Hahn, you're the only one left in the public? No, sir. Okay, thank you. We appreciate all the work you do. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded twice by Councillor Granger. No debate on the motion. All those in favor or otherwise, please vote now. Motion's unanimously passed. We stand adjourned. Thank you.